all by itself, I would say, although insensitive, is not one that would lead one to believe that this man is not in the mainstream of American civil rights. But don't forget, we're talking about a man who, before he was on the court, fought open housing in his hometown, wrote letters to the editor in his hometown under no one's pay. We're talking about a man who's been alleged to have been involved in what was then a constitutionally legitimate practice of challenging voters, Hispanics and blacks primarily, to ask them whether or not they could read English or read before they voted. We're talking about a man who has written a memorandum, which I will not go into now, but will go into later, when he was at the Justice Department, and allegedly by some, and I'm one of those who believes, wrote a memorandum for Mr. Justice Jackson, saying Plessy versus Ferguson was constitutionally valid law and should not be overruled. So we're not talking about the aberration of an otherwise committed civil libertarian and civil rights activist, not that you have to be a civil rights activist to be in the court. So we shouldn't paint this in terms of it being A, only this case, or B, that Justice Rehnquist doesn't have a 30-year history of having been, at best, resistant to change. And the fact that he ends up somewhere 81 out of 84 times voting against civil rights, what are characterized, and I will go into it more, characterized as the position taken by the black Americans or black plaintiffs, again, in and of itself, does not mean the man is a racist. It does not mean that the man is not intellectually sound. It does not mean that he is not one who has found arguments within the Constitution to make his position, or constitutionally credible arguments. So what I'm saying at this point, I will make those points later. Let's get in everybody's mind the man we're talking about. We're talking about a man who has not been anywhere near the forefront, and at best he has been at the rear, and not hanging on, but pulling back, it seems to me, any movement on civil rights in this country. Now, I yield the floor.
But the majority of blacks in this country don't want to arrive at their fortune in the future on the backs of other people who are discriminated against solely because of their skin color. They don't believe in quotas. So he's going to differ.
May I ask the Senator, who's talking about quotas but you?
That's what a lot of these cases, I'm going to go into what these cases involve. They'll be upset if they're told that they've got to have abortions in
You said on race. You said on race. Will you stick to a point, Senator? You are mixing apples and oranges with bananas now. I mean, what is your point?
Wait a minute.
You were just talking about race.
Well, let's talk about that.